Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hansen, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all in this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. We are here tonight with the fantastic Ricktastics playing in your town soon. Anyway, I have with us the one and only Ricky Bruley.
Hello.
On lead guitar, we have Kelly Lovelace.
Good evening.
Playing the tambourine is Ashley Kurtenbach.
The tambourine.
Hey,
In the limp,
next time can I have cowbell?
you can have cowbell.
We need more
Always.
cowbell.
Always more cowbell. Always.
And as usual, you have me, Rick Hansen, the lip-syncing genius.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's fun to get us together, and especially, now that we go to work in the dark, we come home in the dark, and, that's why I love spring and summer, is because here, anyway, in western South Dakota, we have light at 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and then you don't lose it until 9. So you have so many opportunities to go enjoy the outdoors, and you get to experience a lot of stuff with many people because you have so many opportunities to enjoy the light. And we thought that Ashley brought this up to me. We thought that talking about relationships at this time of the year would be a great episode, because one thing is that I hate to say, but I have experience in good and bad relationships. And I laugh at this stuff, but I've been divorced, I've been married, now I'm in a good place. And you live life. Ricky and Kelly and I had that conversation of me going to those dark places, but I think when everybody needs to look into themselves before they can truly give in a marital relationship, we'll say, to understand themselves is to understand what they want in a relationship. And maybe I'm wrong, but you guys can correct me, and I can give my perspectives here too. To start out with, to me, the best relationship is to like the person you're with. And it's interesting though, because if you're in it for the wrong reasons and don't like that person, how are you truly going to express the word love? I love all of you guys, but I don't love you like I love Cindy in that aspect. Do you understand? Like, all of us have our spouses, but I think that's the beginning of the whole relationship, is to like that person.
Yeah. You have to like them.
Yeah.
Well,
Unless you don't have a choice. Like when you're a coworker and you don't have a choice. You have a relationship with them. You don't.
Well, that's a different story there.
I mean, we've all had some.
Yeah.
I think like when you're talking, some of that stuff might happen too with like maybe family members or extended family or something like that. You might, love them. I don't want to say out of necessity, but it's one of those things where they're a family member, so you love them, but maybe you don't like them. But I don't think you want to be in like a relationship with somebody that you don't like, and if things are starting to go that way, then you might want to try to navigate that sooner than later.
I think that we all have our seasons of unlikability.
Truth.
right? I know there's times where I got people who don't like me, and it could be my attitude or the way that I'm my thought process, or it could be their attitude or their thought process in that moment. And I think in a marriage there are moments when you're like, man, it's just hard right now, and I love them, but I'm not sure that I like them in this moment. And it is something that I think you have to work through. Um, from the attraction, like liking them, there's a commitment that's made, and that's a choice. So like I choose to be committed to these people, or I choose to be committed to this person. And I don't think that's a one-time choice. I think you're making that choice every day, right? I'm committed here. No matter what, I'm committed.
And I agree with you there, Kelly, in that aspect, because I come home, there's certain times of the year that, of course, work is a little more stressful. You know, you have things going on at work where it's really, really stressful. And I am lucky to have Cindy because she sees what's going on. She knows that I'm quiet. I don't say much because I don't want to be snarky, because I wake up every day and I tell myself it's a decision to be in a good mood. It's your
Mm-hmm.
decision to be in a good mood. That's why I put out those posts every day, is I'm telling myself that there is good things out there and I need to be in a good mood, because if I'm not in a good mood, I'm going to destroy myself in some aspects because I'm thinking about the bad things. The other thing is with Cindy is, and this is funny because she knows when I need to get to the woods. She
Mm-hmm.
knows that you need to get away. And it's funny this year, I'm going to bring Ashley into this, but it's funny because Cindy, when I was going to Montana elk hunting earlier this year in September, Cindy said, I am so happy that Ashley gets to go with you because we have fun together, and it's like you come back with another energy because you're just relaxed and you're hunting with friends and enjoying life. That's what we do, and we make stupid videos and we talk about stuff that that you talk about with friends, and that's
Right.
what it's about. And to have people have a wife that understands that I need to get to the woods, I need to be with my good friends and enjoy life and say go. That's very important to me.
That's a testament to your communication between the two of you, right? Even the non-vocalized communication, she can tell your demeanor, and without even asking, hey, I noticed there's something wrong, she can tell that there's something wrong, and she also knows the cure for you.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. But you've communicated, like, to get to the point in your marriage and your relationship now, I think you have communicated that to her. This is what makes me happy, and she allows you to have that space in order to find that, and on a consistent basis, like when you need it.
And I agree with you because I know that I'm not perfect and I know that I have
What?
faults. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing, that I mean, it took, and you know this, Kelly and Ricky and everybody probably knows, well, most people know that it took a long time for Cindy to get out here because she was living in Pierre and I was living in Spearfish, and she wanted her kids to graduate, and so we were individuals and we were still in a relationship. And I think that I didn't have to entertain Cindy and she didn't have to entertain me. We came together because we liked each other, loved each other. That grew, and I think in this day and age, there's people that are looking for comfort. If you watch social media or anything like that, you'd say, I want a $500,000 man, or I want $100,000 man, or I want $1 million man, and they're looking at that first, and not the person. And I've always said, and it's funny because I'll be honest, Cindy and I met on Match.com. But here's the funny thing: like Cindy and I met online, and she she sent me she sent this thing to me, and then at this we met at this pub, and we're going to have lunch, and she had a waitress there to bail her out if I was a funky guy, and I guess I got lucky.
Always have to have a backup plan.
Right.
Always.
That's called an escape route.
Yes.
But where I'm going with this is, and I'm not trying to take up the time here, but it's interesting these days because of, I don't know, society. Men have been beat down in relationships. Men are getting beat up all the time because nobody says, "Are you happy?" They always ask the female if they're happy. And I think we need to say, "Are you both happy?" If you understand what I'm saying.
You agree with that from a female perspective, Ashley?
I mean, I think so. I mean, women, I mean, by nature, we're more emotional, right? So we're going to wear our emotions on our sleeve a lot more. And if you start studying relationships as well, you can just see we're going to hold on to things a lot longer than what a male would, whether it's grudges or whatever. Like if you said something incorrectly and it just like latched on. I have seen it. It's days. It can be days depending on what was said, but it can be days. Whereas you've said it, forgot it, you've moved on your day, you have no idea. So you're wondering why 8 hours later she's not happy. I don't have any idea. I did nothing wrong, right? So I think, but as another female, you can see it right away. You're like, oh my God, what's up?
Yeah.
So probably like that's probably why you feel that way. And that is probably why females maybe get asked that question a little bit more because we are emotional and because we hold those feelings and we show them on our face, like physically, I think.
It, it's interesting to me because the reason I brought that up was because there's a podcast, they put a clip out and they had this lady on, and the guy is asking the female, "Is your husband happy?" And she said, "They never ask me that. They say, 'Are you
Yeah.
happy?'" And when he asked that question, she got quiet, and she never said a word until he said, "Well, I guess you answered the question because she's not saying a word." And then she left the podcast, took out and swore at him. Like, and this is where I came into this because are we in that aspect? Are we searching for something? Because our society is changing so much. I talked to some people today, and we might get into this a little later, but society is changing so much because we look at social media, and there are people that make their relationships look better than they are, and I I've been part of that probably in some aspects in a previous marriage, and because I would always say, why can you say it on social media but you can't tell me at home
To your face.
to my face?
Yeah.
And that was a big deal to me. And then we're looking at other people that are supposedly living this stuff, and we shouldn't compare. And should we? To
No.
what we are seeing?
But social media, I think, things we've talked about previously too, it can be the thief of joy. You are just constantly in comparison, looking at what you see appears to be online versus what you experience if you're with that couple firsthand. And I think some couples do it subconsciously and some do it consciously. to put stuff out there on social media. Like, it's not okay, but I need everybody to think it's okay. I've seen both, and you'll see couples who have these, like, maybe elaborate trips or really good photos or something together, and then all of a sudden 3 months later they filed for divorce, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And when you think it's out of the blue, and maybe that's them trying to convince themselves on social media. If we put this out there, maybe we'll get the gratification like you do as an individual, but as a couple, like that reaffirmation of like, no, we're supposed to, oh, we're such a good couple, we're meant to be together, all that stuff. Maybe you're just starting to rely on those external comments to fuel, the relationship, which I think, as we know, it's not going to.
One thing nobody would ever say to me on social media, though, is you're a beautiful couple, because I'm in the picture.
Oh my gosh.
I kind of want to.
Oh, Rick.
I want to go back a bit about the comment you about. I think you're both right in that. I think it's probably less common for people to ask the man, but I think the reason for that being is that like Ashley said, with us being, I guess, less empathetic, maybe less emotional, we probably have more of a tendency to say, yeah, everything's great. And then that's it. There's no context to it, and so like, I feel like when they ask, the female in the relationship, they're probably going to get some more substance or more of a, that's just kind of the way that I'm looking at it a little bit. But I think it's becoming more common where, men probably do want to express that. And so I think it's important that people ask, because we have these conversations now, you know what I mean? Like Rick, I don't think you and I really had any real deep conversations about our relationships, until we kind of started this, and then we, as we get to know each other more and we work together more, it's like, man, this is great. Like, I didn't know that about you. This is really cool. It's really fun to like get to know people on a deeper level, and especially good people. Right. And I think that's the other thing too, where, if you don't really see, I think if it's maybe somebody that you're not sure about, or maybe somebody you don't want to like, give the whole story to, you're probably just going to give them the surface story on things, where maybe the lady in the relationship might be more willing to give up more of that information. Maybe not. I could be wrong there. So I'll stop rambling now. I'm going to give Kelly a second here to respond to
that. Wow. So there is a huge difference in the way guys approach relationships and girls or ladies, right? Gals approach it. Guys are looking for respect. That's a huge deal for guys. Mm-hmm. And then women are looking for a connection that makes them feel loved. Like they're looking for the love connection there. And so when I speak unlovingly to my wife, it hurts her heart. And when she speaks disrespectfully to me, that hurts my heart. As far as trying to figure that out, you learn that. You're going to learn that by the environment you grew up in, watching mom and dad, watching grandma and grandpa, watching aunts and uncles, watching family friends. And then through your experiences, you start to learn what to say and not to say and how to say it and how not to say it, right? Communication is the number one thing that breaks people up. We just don't communicate well, or we have bad communication skills based on our listening skills, not our speaking skills. We don't listen well. We read into things. I grew up in a family that read into everything. And I had to learn how to break free from that, because not everything is passive aggressive. I'm sorry. Right? And so communicating is huge. When it comes to the way the world is looking at men and women, we have a lot of young men that are growing up without a positive male role model in their life to show them how to be a man and how to do the things men should do. We're naturally, like, guys are naturally designed to provide, to protect, to promote the family, to promote themselves. That's how we provide better, is by promoting what we have. So we want to be able to provide. When we don't feel like we're providing, we feel lesser than, and nothing I do is good enough. Now, I know none of you have ever felt that way. But it gets tough sometimes when you find yourself there, right? The other side of it is guys are fixers, and a lot of times my wife doesn't want me to fix anything. She just wants me to connect with her. That's that love connection. I'm listening. I'm emotionally involved with what she's talking about, and we just miss that because we want to fix it. Guys, I won't go to Rick with a problem unless I don't have anywhere else to go to fix it. Right? Like, I can't fix it. I've got to find somebody that can help me fix it. So I'm going to go talk to Rick about my problem. Ladies, don't do that. They're not looking for a fix it. They're looking for a connection. And we miss that. No one teaches us that stuff, right? We've got to learn that somewhere. And so guys aren't going to talk about it.
I'll say, like, being with Jesse for 18 years and, like, also talking about relationships with other people, I will preface a conversation with, I'm going to tell you something that's bothering me, but I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. So I start that so that his brain doesn't start clicking away at, how am I going to fix this for her? Because that's why she's coming to me. No, like, I just need you, because I just need to get it off my chest, and then I can move on, you know? And just need to communicate with, your trusted person, like your best friend. That's who your spouse, or, when you're in a relationship, that's who you're going to. So yeah, I do try to, when I know that there's a problem within that conversation, I try to start with, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. I do find that it seems, if you start the conversation like that, they tend to listen better because they're like, oh,
yeah, it's true. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I figured out that lesson early on. We had to go through that several times where it was like, okay, I got to take the hard hat off and stop trying to fix the problem. Right. And then just be there to listen. But then I go to the extreme. And so then I'm just like very intently listening, but there's no follow-up question. So there's no real conversation. So then it's like, so then she feels like maybe I'm not paying attention or listening, because then I'm kind of find that happy medium. You want to listen and you want to ask questions, but it's not about making suggestions or saying, oh, well, maybe you should do this or maybe you should try that. It's just, acknowledging what she's saying, trying to add into the conversation a little bit, but at the same time, like, just definitely avoid trying to solve the problem.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to say in those moments, because Rick tells me he's got all this stress and it's really frustrating him, and I go, oh yeah, that would frustrate me too. I would never like come across and say it that way to him, but my wife might talk about her frustration, and I go, yeah, you know what, that would frustrate me too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just part of the listening aspect. It's not, oh well, here's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just ended it right there, typically. So it's building that relationship together and trying to figure out how to communicate well to each other. So if I go to my wife and I'm sharing a problem with her, I want her opinion. Like, how do I fix this? Like, what do we need? What should I do? So it's a little different, but we've been married 30 years and have 4 kids and 2 grandkids and 2 on the way. So it's commitment to wanting to love that person. And I've said this, and she said this to me. I didn't marry her to make her life miserable. I wanted her to be happy. And my hope is that the 2 of us together are better, and she makes me better than I would be if I was by myself, and vice versa. And
That's
I don't
huge.
know if couples get into those relationships with that as kind of like the one of the foundational blocks is I want to help them. I want them to be better with me than without me.
Yeah, and you talk about conversation, and it's interesting when we talk about conversation because in the roles, because Cindy was more like she wanted to fix things. We kind of had different, we switched the roles because I guess I'm that snag that she wanted because I was a sensitive new age guy. And,
Yes.
eh, but I mean, here's the deal. I just talk and I pour my heart out because I feel like I have nothing to hide. I feel like I'm very transparent and it was tough, but what helped us, I think, is for us that are lucky enough to live in the Black Hills of South Dakota, we're a hop, skip, and a jump to Cody, Wyoming, or Jackson, Wyoming, or I mean, those are Denver. And when you get into a car and drive to these places with anticipation, you have conversation. Or at least I do, because you know
Whether she likes it or not, she's
whether
locked in
she
the
likes
car.
it or not. Very true. But we have conversation, and that's where things started going because, and she's learned like to say like Kelly did something today, and she'd say, "Why did he do it?" We'll just say, and I never ask him. I don't care why he did it. He just did it. You, you know what I mean? And I don't because I don't have to ask questions to know you or like you. I just don't ask the questions. It's none of my damn business, kind of thing. And and I think that's like you were talking earlier. You want to know a little more detail, and when somebody tells me something in confidence, I don't know, but I don't go home and tell Cindy things because it was confidently told to me. And if it's a different, if it's something that's not going to be heard, and I don't think she's going to say anything. I know she wouldn't say anything to anybody else, but when I have this thing that to trust me is more important to me than a lot of things in the world because I feel
Mhm.
that's a character trait. And if it was an important enough that I thought I need to say something to her, I would. But if you say something to me in confidence, it's stuck until you decide to tell the world.
That makes me it make see like when like so here's a great example, Rick, right? So you and Cindy are married. I to talk about transparency, right? Like I don't ever want to keep anything from my wife. And so for you guys, like if I tell you something, I'm telling you and Cindy something because I go into it knowing that I feel like I wouldn't want to put you in a position where you can't be honest with your wife about something. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I'm just saying there's some things that are important that you don't need to know. She doesn't need to know in the aspect of a business deal or something like that or
Yeah.
whatever else. It's like, you know what? It, it'll come out maybe, but maybe in one of those road conversations. But right now, you have confidence in me, and we've talked about this actually, and you know what that is? It's trust. I trust her judgment, and she trusts my judgment. If it was important, and I was worried about somebody like if somebody told me they were thinking about suicide, we'll say, now I would tell her because I want her to keep two eyes or four eyes are a little bit better than two eyes on watching the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other things that are like Kelly has this 230-inch buck in this one spot, and he told me exactly where it was. No, I'm not telling anybody.
Right. To the grave.
Yeah.
To the grave.
I think that is something that could cause issues in your marriage if it was to come, a couple years down the road. I can't imagine Cindy being upset with you because you didn't tell her about, so I get that.
Well, I have a little bit different perspective just because of my occupation as a pastor.
That's what I was gonna
So-
say. Yeah.
That's why you're here, spreading the
Yeah,
knowledge.
so my wife and I are very open, but there's also things she understands that my job does not allow me at times to share with her all the details or all of a situation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the chaplain for the fire department. I'm also the chaplain for our police department. There's counseling, PTSD, post-traumatic stress type stuff after accidents or fires. Some of those things I can't talk about, right? Like the details to those situations. And so she has to trust that I'm gonna let her know what I can know, and I'm not gonna talk about what I can't talk about. So, and that's not just with those individuals. There's aspects of that within the church itself, and there's the other part of that is there's some stuff that I would prefer not to tell her because of the way that it would make her feel, or the way that it would create a specific view for her that would be hard for her to like work through. Not that she couldn't work through it, but it would be hard understanding my wife's heart and who she is. And so there's a protective aspect of that too because of my occupation. I feel like that's important. So I don't want her to ever feel like she's on an island by herself, or that people don't like her, or whatever that might be. But it's not that I got a lot of people coming and talking to me about her specifically, but there's just attitudes that are out there that I'm like, I probably don't need to talk to her about that person's attitude today. Kind of keep that to myself after certain situations. So it's the aspect of what I do and the confidentiality that goes along with that. On the flip side of that, I'm a mandatory reporter. So if someone does talk to me about suicide, that's something I have to report. Or they're in the midst of abuse, I've got to report those things. And of course, it's just it can complicate if the other person doesn't understand the necessity. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sort of a pastoral Hippocratic oath.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll hear on usually what you do is you hear it on something like CSI or some police show or some court show where they say it's protected by the cloth. That's what they're talking about as a clergy type of protectiveness. It's not really legal. The Catholic Church holds on to it pretty hard. Like the confessional booth. The priest won't talk about what takes place in there, which is part of that confidentiality, right? So there's a big aspect of that to the job that I have. So she understands that, and it's good. It's not that I'm intentionally trying to hide things from her in order to, keep it specifically from her. We have to have an open line of communication.
Listen, if I have a friend that tells me that they're pregnant and they're like, nobody knows, not even my parents, I can promise you the vault is sealed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jesse, when one of our, when he found out like one of our friends is pregnant, he's like, how long have you known? And I was like, months, like 4.5 months.
I was the second one to know.
Yeah. Yes. He's like, you never said anything. I was like, I was instructed not to.
Exactly.
It's right.
Because here's the deal, like for that situation of a pregnancy, we'll just say, you tell me, but you don't want to go public yet, because sometimes it's before the first trimester and they want to make sure they get past the first trimester.
Mm-hmm.
But they're excited about it.
They want to tell somebody.
They want to tell somebody,
Yeah.
but they want to get past the first trimester. It's not for me to let go of their excitement to the world. So But I want to get back to one thing here, because here's one thing too. When if any of us were having marital problems, we'll say, and you came to me in confidence and you needed to vent about your spouse or whatever, that stays with me, because I think if you tell me and then I tell somebody else, then it starts skewing your perspective of that person when all you were doing is venting. And once you start skewing the perception of that other person, you go out and you do things, you're
It
skewed. It
changes.
changes the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And you know, they were just venting with you, and that's all they were doing. And see, that's where I don't. Cindy has people that are her friends. I have people that are my friends, and I don't need to tell you the stuff, because we're not as close. You know, we have different circles of friends outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now I just want to talk about the good things in life, and I think you need to, like, every morning, even though people get tired of it. Cindy, I don't know if she gets tired of it. She just kind of, I tell her that she's a great person. I tell her that I love her. I tell her that she's made my life better every morning when I get up. And I think you need to say those things of appreciation to those people. I mean, I would appreciate feeling appreciated, but she usually says, I'm just get out of here because I'm still trying to sleep. But that's besides the point.
Hey, are you awake? Are
Exactly.
you awake?
Hey,
You are the greatest person I know.
Exactly.
Rick.
But
Thanks. Leave me alone. I'm sleeping.
because you're going for a walk here, just wait, tell me when you get back,
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. But but I don't want to ever forget. So sometimes I just get up and say that. But I actually read a deal today about what helps men. And men, like you said, men want to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
Men want to be appreciated,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and men want, I wrote it down, men want to be desired by their wives. And it's not all sexual, it's just desired, like you want to be with them, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And
There's a book out called Love and Respect by
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Eggerichs, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
I've read
He
it.
tells a story in there of the wife who sat in the shop while the husband was doing his woodworking stuff. Do you remember that, Ashley?
No,
And
not. It's
he
been a
said,
minute since I read it.
okay, he said the husband, she was telling him a story, and she said, I was just sitting there, and he would turn and look at me and smile, and then he'd go right back to what he was doing. And then after a minute goes by, he'd turn and look at me and just smile. And then he'd go back and finish what he was doing. And it really had to do with the proximity of her proximity to him, and the fact that she made it seem like, if she didn't, it seemed like, I want to be with you. I want to be where you're at. That likability,
Do
does
you
that make
do
sense?
you yeah, do you guys find that the longer you're in the relationships, that stuff, the desire and all that, those things, like just being in your presence as you get older, maybe, or further in the relationship, it's almost like you need it more. And I'm not sure why that is, but I have noticed that with males. God, I hope Jesse doesn't listen to this, but I'll just say this is like, with him, I am a very busy person.
no.
I will fill my schedule just because I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, no problem. Whatever. I do say no sometimes. You know that. I've said
Yeah.
no. But I can tell all of a sudden his demeanor will change when suddenly I will have a week, maybe two, that are really, really packed. And he will, under his breath, say something. It's not. meant to be hurtful necessarily, but it's meant to like, hey, I'm trying to send you a message. And so I will turn to him now and say, if you want to spend time with me, that is all I need you to say. Like, it's okay to admit that you want me to be here, but I need you to vocalize it. Otherwise, I feel like you don't care all the time. So that's made a big difference. When I'm like, it's okay. You can say that you like me and you want me to just be here, even if we do nothing. Maybe it's watching a film or a documentary or TV show or something like that. It's as simple as just being in, like Kelly said, in presence together.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be actively doing something, but even this year, Jesse and I have not hunted together hardly at all. In the last 2 years, we have gone separate ways, different states, different tags. Even in South Dakota, I'm out by myself, he's out by himself. If we're checking trail cameras, it's not even always together. We're dividing and conquering. So this year, Black Hills Rifle opened up November 1st, which was a Friday. I was going to take that day off. I thought he had the day off as well. And he's like, no, 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 you should just go. You should go. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait till the next day. I said, it's been over a year or two since we've actually not upland birds, but hunted big game together. I said, I think it'd be cool just to spend the morning in the woods. So I'm going to skip opening day and then let's go out together. And then I ended up shooting a buck that was, what was that, last Saturday or something?
A
And I was
spike.
like,
I was wondering why I didn't know.
no. I've just been busy, Ricky. I'll send you all pictures later. But anyway, but we went out and I was like, oh, this is cool. We haven't we help, people cut up animals, but we haven't actually cut up an animal and packed it out for a while together. And so it was nice to have that experience where you're working as a team. And I actually took a time lapse of us breaking down this deer again because it had been so long, and then dividing out the packs and the weight and things like that.
And of course, you carried out the most, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was just about making an effort to really make that happen instead of just getting so focused on, okay, it's opening day, I want to get out there, yada yada yada, what could I be missing? That wasn't even the point. It was about, I've been busy, he's been busy, working overtime, both of us. And so it was really about just experiencing that, what we love together again. But I had to make a conscious effort to do that.
I think you're right in the aspect of, like, we get busy. It's funny that we're the busy people, really. I mean, I'm trying to do podcasts. I'm trying to get other things
I
done
work
too.
18 million jobs.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm forgetting Cindy, but it's that just tell me that you want to go do something, or I'm going to go find something else to go do.
100%.
And it's not that I'm trying to take time away from you, but then, like, Thursday night, we're going to go to a movie. We haven't been to a movie in a long time, but we're going to go to a movie. And Cindy said she wanted to go do that. And that's why we went to, well, the episode that's coming out tomorrow. We went up to Lead to watch Juliet play
Oh,
Patsy
awesome.
Cline songs.
Yeah.
We took the time to be together, but you need to tell me this stuff because I can't. Here's the thing, and all of you might know, I can't read minds.
You can't?
No, so I can't. You need to tell me at times that you want me to slow down here, and we'll go for a walk together, or we'll go to a movie together, or we'll do something because there's certain times in life, like you were talking earlier, Kelly, that I might be not very likable.
Yeah. Right.
So to stop and tell me that I need to slow down here and we need to go on a trip in the aspect of we need a trip to the Bighorns, or to the Badlands, because it's fun because Cindy takes her camera, I take my camera, we take different perspectives. It's fun to see the shots that she takes compared to the shots that I take.
But you're doing something
But we're doing
again.
it
Yeah.
together. Just
Hmm.
we have a different perspective, and it's so fun to compare and contrast pictures
Yeah.
that we have both taken. and we're doing something together. We're going to the movie. We're going to be in a place where you can't talk,
But you're in the presence of
but
each other.
we're in the presence of each other, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and those are the things that I appreciate about Cindy in that aspect is we appreciate the time that we do spend together. Now we're planning now we're planning a trip, hopefully at this time, well, not this time, but in December next year. This is something we can plan, and half the half the excitement of, or I would say more like 75% of the best part of a trip is anticipation.
Yeah.
75% of a hunt is anticipation. It's the dreams you have of a big animal or the adventure you're going to have, and that's the when you're in a relationship and you can plan something together, then it starts to weld yourself together again. Like if there were cracks in a little part of your life, planning something that you're both excited about might be that little weld that keeps things together, I don't think anything is, I'm not perfect, and I've been in relationships that I've failed in, and I never thought I would. I just think when you get married,
But yeah,
you expect that that's going to be a lifetime thing, and when it fails, there's there's blame that goes both ways, and you have to learn from those failing things that have deteriorated that relationship and hopefully pick it up and put it in the next.
I think one thing with you and Cindy, because of your both of your experiences too, and I can say this from Ricky because I know Ricky and Susan as well. You can see it when you have things that you like together, like photography, right? That's your commonality. That's why those trips. That's such a great trip for you guys. You're bonding right over that. What makes you like each other?
Mm-hmm.
But we all have things that we like separately. Like Susan has all her art, and Ricky does hunting. Now they don't always do that together, but you create space in your relationships to be able to vocalize, I would like to do this, and then the partner has to not reject it. Not all the time. Now, where relationships can go real sour south, I think, is when it's constant rejection. Like, I want a date night. That's dumb. I don't want to go eat there. I don't want to do it. I'm too tired to do this. I want to do this. Oh, okay. I don't really feel like it. Eventually, you start closing off those parts of communication, but you guys have opened it where it's like, okay, yeah, you want to do that. It's not my favorite thing, but I'm going to go do it
Mm-hmm.
because I want to spend time with you. And Ricky has helped Susan, I know, with her art stuff. And that is, might not be his favorite thing, but he loves her and has given her the space to vocalize, this is important to me. So it's going to be important to him as well. And that's a huge thing. And when you face rejection, what I've noticed too in certain relationships, when it's constant rejection and you're trying to then come out of that and revive the marriage or any relationship, friendship, you name it, like within a family, it could be mom, dad, cousin, aunt, it doesn't matter. When you try and put 100% effort back into fixing that relationship, you'll have to know that because of whatever damage you could have caused as your part, the rejection, you're going to have to be okay with getting that, even if that's 100% all the time, all the time, all the time, until you break that wall again. So if you can create that space always to be able to vocalize your feelings and your wants, then I think that's where you get to be able to do things together harmoniously, even if you don't quite feel like doing everything. So, I mean, you guys can add to that, but I wanted to bring up, I know this gets beat to death, but the love languages, I assume, do
Mm.
you guys all know what your spouse's love languages are?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so important. And it's, usually you marry the person who doesn't have the same love
Who doesn't
languages
have the
you
same
have.
ones you have? Yes.
And it's awful to try and like accept that is, you're like, oh my God, why is that important? But it is, and you have to be conscious of it, and you have to make the effort towards that love language. And I think those are big things to really make, especially being in a relationship long term.
Yeah, and the love languages can kind of change too. It's not always a
100%.
constant, you know. It's kind of something that it's part of knowing your partner and understanding that. And I wanted to go back just a little bit about what you guys were talking about not too long ago, Ashley, when you were talking about, okay, so sorry, trains going all over the place right now in my head. Rick said something about you can't read minds, and this is true. And I was thinking that before he even said it, but we've had that discussion about how, yeah, it's important that we communicate things and we're open and honest about things because we can't read one another's minds. And then on the same token, for us busybodies, right? It is nice for my wife to come to me and say like, hey, let's go do this, or I want to go do that. But then on the flip side of the coin, if I've got time to fill up my schedule and plan out my schedule and fill up every single minute of my day, I have time to plan something for me and my wife to do as well. And so I think it kind of goes both ways, right? Like if my hyper focus is off too deep, I might need you to bring me down to planet Earth and say, "Hey, we need to spend some time together." But it's not, that can't always be the expectation. It's about priorities, right? So my relationship with my wife is a priority. It should come above all those other things, and so I also need to factor that into my schedule. I have to also meet her in the middle as well and go, hey, we should plan something. Let's go do something. So, and I was happy to hear, Ashley, that you were like, you waited the day and then you decided to, give up your opening day to go with that, cause I was thinking it and then you said that and I was like, oh, awesome. Thumbs up, so.
So what I heard is Ricky is a mind reader because he just read Ashley's mind.
I know. I feel like I was like, he knew what Rick was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a moment when you start to think like that other person. I don't know if that's mind reading, but you begin to think a little bit more like that other person. I think that's part of this idea of marriage and oneness is we begin to rub off on each other enough. It's like, oh, we're thinking alike, right? Like in that moment. And that's a good thing. And I know there's been times where we've both been, hey, we just need to sit down and slow down for a moment. Because we can, my wife is a busybody, and I'm always running, it feels like. So for us to be able to sit down and do that. A funny thing happened. My wife likes to move the house around every, I don't know, once a year. She changes up a room. And so she moved our dining room table into what had been our like sitting room. Like we had our little futon and a couple of chairs and we got rid of the futon and we bought 2 recliners and now at least once a week, it's probably more like 3 to 4 times a week at the end of the day, because we kind of have that empty nest going on. I've got a senior in high school and he's not hardly home. He's so busy. We'll sit and for probably 30 minutes to an hour just talk about our day, which has been a change in our schedule, the way we do things, right? It's pretty interesting when you start to think alike, you start to have that space and you start to create those spaces, how it can change your relationship and deepen it. And so that's just been a kind of a blessing that's happened here, probably in the last year and a half, I guess. Yeah. So I think it's important to begin to think about what that other person needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
And it's interesting that you say that, because I come home from work and I have nothing to say because my work is boring in that aspect of any excitement. But what's really probably helped our relationship is not that it was bad, but helped conversation, we'll say,
Mm-hmm.
is this podcast.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
because I go and then I have conversations to tell her about the episode I just recorded. Like, that was
Hmm.
cool. Have you ever thought about it in this perspective, or did you know that it adds to a conversation piece that we can have? And then Cindy will send me uh, thoughts or stuff during the day at times. Like, she listened to this episode of something, a health podcast or whatever, and she said, "What do you think about this?" It's just interesting now that we can go back and forth. It's added to this conversation because I would get pissed at Cindy because she can chat and chat and chat with her kids. But you get Cindy on the phone with me, it's like, yep, okay, see you later, kind of thing. And I was maybe feeling jealous because you didn't have those conversations with me, but now we have more in-depth conversations, and this could be an episode someday. But I also think it's because I've been taking Magic Mind. I think that's helped me out in giving me clarity of thought. It has helped me think better and cleared my it was a calming effect, plus of a couple other supplements. But I just think we're on this path that is different now, because we're not going to we can get into this religious thing a little bit here, because and Callie, this is a funny one, because here's the question. She's a widow, and it's different. That this is when I asked this question the other day, because now that we can get more philosophical, is if you go to heaven and you were married before and you had 2 kids with your husband, and then you married me, who do you choose? And that, she says, well, for her, she said, well, I just think when you go to heaven, it's just a golden place and everybody is happy. There is no choosing in some aspects. What is the perspective there, Mr. Pastor?
Well,
THP.
Jesus says there is no marriage in heaven. The marriage is with God. So the connection to God, the connection to Jesus is most important. And then the connection to the body as a whole uh, is the secondary part of that. So there's no marriage in heaven. Although I think, like when you hear some of the stories, he tells the story of the rich man and Lazarus could see it from hell into paradise, but there was a great chasm, and he wanted Moses, the bosom of Moses is what it translated, kind of, this idea of paradise. He wanted the rich man to go back and tell all his brothers about hell, and said if they don't learn now, a ghost won't change it. So it's that idea that we can see individual people maybe, but we don't see them in the same way. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I I had this conversation just recent with my wife. Like, um, all of my kids are. I have a close relationship with all my kids, and I don't want them to ever look at me and go, "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" And so I just want to make sure that they all, like, my first goal is for them to all know Jesus, not know his name, but have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I want them to know. And then I kind of approached my relationship with them in teaching them about the world in the same way. I didn't want to release them into the world as young adults and then not know. Like, Dad, you never taught us this. You never told us this. If there was an omission or there's something I wasn't able to teach, it's because I was never taught, not because I held it back, right? And so when we get to heaven and they're standing before God, which I believe everybody's going to have to do, and he's talking, and then I don't want them to look at me and go, "Dad, you never told me," right? So I think we're going to have some of those relationships. I mean, we're going to remember those relationships, but I don't know what that looks like when it comes to marriage. What I would have told you, Rick, is there won't be a choice. It's not like it is here on earth. We're going to be different, and we're going to be with Jesus, and the marriage is to Jesus, not to each other, and that changes everything. Will you still know it's Cindy? Yep. Will she still know her former husband that passed away? Yep. But it's not the same as it is here. Does that make sense? I asked that question 3 times already. I got to stop doing that. Like, does that make sense? I just want to make sure my message is being heard, because it can be kind of confusing, this stuff, right?
No, it makes sense. I was trying to get at was now we're having these deeper conversations.
Right.
And now you and I have this conversation. Now when we get done with this episode, I can go say, there is no choice to make, because when you go to heaven, you're married to God. I mean, you're married to
Yeah.
you know what I mean, your faith.
Yeah. It's that relationship with Jesus. Yeah.
Yes, there is no choice to make, because I was saying, heck, if you're divorced and I'm just saying this, if you're divorced on earth, I don't give a darn. I could see him walking down the street and I ain't going to talk to him. And now I'm going to go to heaven. I still don't care. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the other one wasn't a choice.
Right.
And I think sometimes we we're getting into things right here. We read into things that shouldn't really have to be read into in some aspects, because those are the places we've gone. Now, you have helped me answer this question, but I don't need to read into anything. Because you wondered, am I going to be alone? And it's
Yeah.
like who are you going to choose? And there is no choice. There's no
There is no
choice.
choice. The choice
And
is Jesus. Like, that's the
that's
choice.
right. And that's where that will fulfill your soul when you know that stuff, because because there might be something in the back of your mind every once in a while. If the question, like you just answered a question that could have been in the back of my mind forever,
Mm-hmm.
and now with this, you live a more fulfilled and pure life. I don't know what word to really pick, but
It's
pure
peace.
relationship, peaceful relationship.
It's peace, right?
Yeah.
You end up with peace in your heart over it, and it affects that relationship, and that relationship will help build that peace, right?
Yeah.
To be
And
at peace over it. Yeah.
and to be honest, I mean, I've never been in such a peaceful relationship ever. Truly. If there's a problem, we've never got into that really knockdown, drag out kind of argument. But I'm at the most peaceful place in a relationship that I've ever been, because we are trustful and appreciative, and we know our faults, and we
Yeah.
know what we can do good.
Mm-hmm.
Except for this year, I'm not very good at providing meat at the moment, but we're working on that part.
That's okay. It's just the beginning of rifle season. You're fine.
You know,
But she is a great gatherer.
Yes, I think part of it is I was going to mention this earlier too, is the common courtesies. I always say that in relationships, whether it's business, friends, family, marriage, doesn't matter. You still need the common courtesies, the please, the thank yous. I remember I grabbed something for Jesse one time, like out of our garage fridge. I was like, "Hey, do you want?" I don't know what I did, something like that. It was something simple, little. And I was like, "Hey, do you want me to get you something to drink? I'm going to grab something." And he's like, "No, why would you ask me that?" I was like, "Because if you were a guest in my house, I'd ask you. So why, you're my husband. Why would I not ask you?" Because if you lose those little common courtesies like that, I do
Mm-hmm.
think it affects without, like, do you need to say thank you after every bundle of laundry? No. But occasionally, when it's it's nice, like you said, to be appreciated. It is nice to just occasionally at least acknowledge, like, hey, I've noticed I haven't done this chore maybe in a while. It could be the garbage. It could be, it doesn't matter what it is. But occasionally, like, hey, thanks for doing that. So I didn't have to.
Right.
But I have noticed when those go away in any relationship, even like with my business partner, she has taught me to be so much better because when after college, I went straight into the corporate world where I worked with only men. There is no the common courtesies. It's do your job to keep your job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I went into business with her, she kept saying, hey, thanks for doing, and I was like, you don't need to thank me for all these little things, but I've gotten better at thanking our team members, thanking the people around me, because it makes a big difference
It
to know
does.
that it's recognized. And she has taught me to be so much better, and that's our work marriage, right? She's making me a better person
Mm-hmm.
by being a business partner with me, and like I take notes of things that she does, and I was like, okay. And I got to know her love languages just like I have to know Jesse's as a friend and a business partner. I have to know what makes her tick. Those little things matter,
Mm-hmm.
even in a business relationship. So, again, the common courtesies, I can't stress that enough in any relationship. And even if it's your parents, in the last probably 5 years with my parents too, we've created a space where we talk about things that maybe bothered us as kids that we've, as a Midwestern family, you would never in a million years ever bring up. Like, we've moved on. This is 30 years ago. We are not talking about it. But I just love hearing my mom say all the time now, because my parents were young, just, we weren't the best, but we raised two really great kids, and she
Right.
admits it. She's like, we struggled. But we've created a space where it's like, it's okay to admit that you weren't like the best at some of this
Right.
stuff. And we knew it. We struggled just like, but they also struggled, but we admit it. But you're creating space in those relationships to talk about that. And then to, again, the common courtesies when I go over to my parents' house to say, like when Jesse and I pack up to leave, I clean her entire bathroom that we've used. And she's like, you don't need to do that. You're just staying here. I'm like, I know. But if you didn't allow us to stay here, I have to show that I'm appreciative, even though
Mm-hmm.
it was open, regardless if I do nothing and I could have left this a disaster. I'm trying to show you that this is my thank you, even though I didn't have to, you know. But it's those common courtesies I think is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rick.
Uh,
Okay, Rick, you were talking a little bit earlier about, just the trustworthiness, and then to go all the way back to the beginning when we were talking about liking your partner. And this is kind of maybe for some of the people that are listening that are single, maybe they're not married, but one of the things that I could say has helped me and Susan as far as like starting out being successful from the beginning was just being completely honest about who we are and our faults and the baggage that we're bringing into the relationship and everything that comes with it. In the past, I think a lot of people, this might not have been the case in every relationship, but you go into it, the first date is like an interview, right? And so you want to impress, right? You want to throw out all your best qualities and you want to impress that person. You want them to like you. And then you start to really like each other a lot. And maybe there's some skeletons in your closet where you're thinking, oh man, I don't want to talk about that because that could, kind of, put a knife in this whole thing. And then it maybe could create some issues later. And so like for me and Susan, it was just like, and it probably has a lot to do with maturity too, but it's just like, hey, if you don't like me for who I am and for what's got me to where I'm at now, then the relationship, okay, we can be friends, but maybe it's not appropriate to take it to that next level where in the past it was like, oh, I don't want to do anything to mess this up, and ultimately in the end, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it because now you don't even like each other at all. when maybe you could have still been friends. So I think that's really important, just to put it all out there. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be friends, but maybe it doesn't go to that next level, and then you just move on.
That is so true. I see
Yeah,
that. It's like no one's perfect. Just tell me your faults.
Yeah.
I've got. I want to address the common courtesy thing, but this, Ricky, what you're talking about is it's an experience that you have that not everybody starts out with. When think about when you're dating, I call it the car salesman effect.
Yep.
We're trying to sell the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like this person, I want them to like me, I got to sell the car, so they're going to get all the best stuff, right? Like, the radio's awesome, the speaker's glass. No, don't look under the hood because there's a lot of broken stuff under there. But hey, look at no rust on the body and the wheels are great. So we're trying to sell this car, right? And I think that's everybody. That's what we see in the movies. We see that in TV shows. There's in the stories that our moms and dads and grandpas tell. And I think after a certain point, you're like, I just don't want to play this game anymore, right? Like, this is ridiculous. Why did we go through all of this? Because it ended up a train wreck. Like, why didn't we just get it all out
Yep.
in the first month of dating and talk about this? And like, the reason I want you to know my parents isn't because I want to force you into a more committed relationship. I want you to see what I came out of, this craziness, right? Like,
Yeah.
you better run for the hills, you know? So I think it is good. Like, one of the things that helped me is I just had to learn to I'm just going to be myself. Like, I'm kind of goofy. I like strange things. I don't know. Sitting down and just letting them really see me and not try to sell the best parts of me, but let them see who I am. Thankfully, I found a lady who was good at committing to that. Like, all of that. Okay, you get all of it. Yay, you won the prize. So your words come from an experience that not everybody has going into that dating world, and it's something that hopefully we begin to teach.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to impress that person. They're going to like you or they're not, and so get to know them, allow them to get to know you, and if it doesn't work, great. You know, that's instead of dating, we need to be courting, and those are two different words.
Mm-hmm.
And dating is trying to have as much fun as I can with that other person, even if it's at their expense. And courting is I'm trying to find somebody that I want to commit to for the rest of my life. And that's a big deal. And I think that dating can turn into courting, but I would prefer we just remove the dating part of it from the beginning, right? So I don't know if that helps anybody, but I hope it does. If you're single and you're listening, what you need is just somebody who accepts you right where you're at. I've said this a few times as I speak. When I met my wife, I thought she's pretty cool and pretty. And when she met me, I'm sure she was thinking, this guy's almost perfect except for a few things, and I think I can change it. And I was like, you know what? You're pretty enough. I'm just going to let you try. Right? And so if we're going into relationships thinking we can change that other person, you're in trouble right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's learning to love that person. And I do believe this about that word love that's been brought up in this podcast. Love doesn't prove itself when things are going great. Love proves itself when things aren't going great. When you learn to love that person's worst qualities and you love them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you embrace them and want to see them all the time. It means I still love you even when you're at your worst. I'm not going to abandon you or forsake you or leave you because you're at your worst right now. Those unlikable moments. I'm going to stick with it. I'm committed to you because I know who you can be, and I want to encourage you to be that. That's love, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've got to get back to, because I don't think that's the brand of love the world peddles. I think they sell a false definition of that.
Mm-hmm. It seems that I'm not the only mind reader. Apparently, my church can read minds as well because we're currently going through the Song of Songs. Right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, for anybody, basically, Kelly just basically, the courting process, the marriage process, then having kids, all of that. That's what that's all about.
Yeah.
Because I think the reason, some of the things of failing relationship, and I look at myself for one, is when you go into a relationship thinking I can change myself to make that person like me or love me, instead of saying, because when you're talking about selling a car, so we'll go to Cindy and my relationship. We were somewhere. I sold myself as somewhere between an AMC Pacer and a 1980 Toyota that's been rolled 3 times and burnt once, and I had one flat tire, and the U joints were going out. But we certainly got fixed, and I sold her that car.
If nothing else, we can Flintstone our way there.
That's right.
But because it's funny, and you were the biggest help there, Kelly, and I will give that to you because when I met Cindy, I was dead adamant that you're going to have to accept me for who I am and not for who you want me to be.
Right.
And that helped me out more than anything, because that's also confidence within yourself.
Right.
Confidence, like, you know what? You can get the best of me if you accept me for who I am, or you can just not want me, and that's fine. We can move on. And when you can accept failure, and I'm not saying like if you got turned down, I'm not saying that's failure. That's probably success, because you did you've learned a little bit about yourself, and it wasn't meant to be. And it's hard for people these days, or it was hard for me back in those days, to feel rejection at times because everybody wanted to be liked. But now I really don't. You were talking earlier. I guess it's when you get older, because I really don't give a darn much anymore. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm going out there being that grouchy old man. I'm just saying I'm going to be Rick for the rest of my life now, and you have to
Yeah.
accept me for who I am. And I try to be that kind, caring person, and I try to be the good person. But I do say stupid things, and I do crazy things, but in the end, I hope that you can see that it was all with a good heart. And that's what I hope that everybody sees. And that's hopefully what Cindy saw. I don't know what she saw. I ask her at times, and she, maybe she was blind at the time. I don't know, but you know,
Blind in one eye, can't see out of the other.
yeah, couldn't hear.
The windshield was broken.
No. Yeah. So Rick, we had a lot of conversations in those dark days, and one of the things that I remember trying to I wanted it in the back of your head that, and you weren't thinking about that at the time, but back in the back of your head, I wanted you to realize that God's got the perfect person for you out there, and someday you're going to meet her, and
Yep.
she's going to love you. She's going to love you for who you are. And so just have confidence that God's got preparing that person for you as we were speaking, That was a long time ago, so I don't know if you remember us having that conversation, but that's the deal, right?
Yeah.
We've got some work to do. I want every day I want my wife to get the best version of me. Now she doesn't always, because we're human, but I want her to have that best version, and I want her to see how she helps me to be that best version of me. Again, I don't communicate that probably enough as much as I should. That goes back to some of what Ashley was saying about just being courteous and saying, honoring that other person through the way we speak and the way that we approach and the way that we talk. And so, that's important. right? To have that person in our life.
And
We're not meant to be alone. We're meant to be in relationship with others.
well, when you say about remembering this stuff, you're here because I remember this stuff.
Okay.
You're,
Right.
and it's funny when Cindy and I were getting married and we're planning this thing, and I was adamant that you were going to marry us. Adamant. She didn't know you from Adam,
No, she didn't.
and she trusted in the fact that because the first time you met Cindy was when we got married,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
she trusted in the fact that I said, you know what, Kelly's going to marry us, and that's the way it is. And it wasn't, and she knew that I was bringing a good person into our lives, and so all that stuff that I went through, or that you brought me out of, I should say, or gave me the confidence to believe in myself, is part of why our relationship is successful.
Mm-hmm.
Now she'll probably divorce me tomorrow, but that's besides the point. No, I'm just kidding. See, and this is a thing that, like, when I first really started getting into wanting to do this thing and do social media and stuff like that, it was like we'd be driving down the road and or we'd be somewhere and I'd just do a live FaceTime and put her right on the spot, and she cured me of that a few times though, because stop doing that, and it's but it's interesting because this is the part about relationships that are interesting too, because I wanted to do this podcast. So in this day and age, social media's, I'm trying to put out the positive stuff. I want to keep on growing Don't Die Rusty and growing the brand. And this isn't what Cindy wants to do. So yes, I'll put her in some posts with me occasionally, but I'm not putting her in every day in the aspect, because that's not what she wants, and she's told me that. And
Mm-hmm.
she has no jealousy in that aspect of, this is just who we are, and I, like I said,
And you're respecting her boundaries.
yeah, it's like, this isn't who I want, what I
Yep.
want, but we go do those, things together. I went and found some sunrises that'll be coming out this week. We actually climbed up to. Now, I mean, it's not a real big climb, but we went up to Mount Roosevelt on
Oh,
Sunday,
nice.
and we had a great
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
sunrise. But I'm saying this isn't what she wants, but I support her dreams of what she wants to
Mm-hmm.
do, and that's probably 100% of why we get along too, is because she's supportive of my dreams and I'm supportive of her dreams. If she needed something in some aspects, last summer when she rode up with her son to Alaska, I mean, I said I would love to go, but I knew that should be mother son drive. So they, how many days? I mean, we talked about this at one time, that 90% of the life that you get to live with your kids is between when they're born to 15 years old. How many
Mm.
times do you get to ride with your son to Alaska for a whole week
Right.
Starting a new
and have
chapter.
those conversations? Those are the things that I want to be supportive of. You want to go do something with your girlfriends, go do it. Because, I mean, sometimes I drive her crazy, and that's probably on other things too. But
Sometimes you need to go to the woods. Sometimes she needs to go to a brewery with her
yeah,
friends.
yeah, something like that. But
Mm. Yeah.
but it's also like, I make fun of this when she goes to conferences or goes and does her, and does stuff. But I like being a bachelor at times too, just sitting at home, just relaxing, and she knows that. But she also likes me to be gone so she can can her tomatoes or do whatever she is doing in that aspect, or here's the deal. I don't like fish. Everybody knows that.
What?
Yeah. So when I go on a trip, when I go on a hunting trip, she cooks fish while I'm gone.
Yeah.
And that's how it works out, because then then the smell of fish is out of the house when I get home.
But this goes back to what Kelly was saying with the love and respect.
Yeah.
She's supporting you because she respects your thoughts. She respects what you want, right?
Yeah.
And it's a full circle. So when you have that love and respect going around, it I mean, it's as simple as that, really. I mean, it works.
Because when you have a woman that'll stand out there when it's 0 degrees out and you're standing in your American flag underwear
Oh my
with
God, poor Cindy.
in stuff like that, and the wind
Sounds
is
like
blowing on
abuse.
top of a mountain, and she's taking a picture.
It's another form of prison.
But I mean, I tell her what I want, in the aspect of, take this picture of me. This is what I want, and she does it because she knows she's supporting me. And I think we all have that in our relationships mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so support your
Yep.
spouses, support their dreams. I mean,
And your friends and your business partners.
well,
Yeah.
Rick,
This,
I mean, you guys right here.
so that takes a little bit of selflessness and sacrifice, which is in short commodity in our culture today. Right? Like, let's
Yeah.
think about that.
Yes.
Mhm.
So to have a solid, real relationship, there's some sacrifice and some selflessness that's got to go into it.
yeah,
Where I literally have to sacrifice maybe something I want so that that person can get what they want. That's not just marriage. That's parenting. That's that's working in partnership with a business partner. That's friendships, right? Like, well, man, I was hoping we'd go to a movie and go out and eat, but my best friend's son is playing football tonight. I'm probably going to go to the football game and support him, right? And as he cheers for his son. So there has to be that aspect of it, and that is not something that is readily taught. The selflessness and the sacrifice that a genuine relationship is going to require, and what that looks like. We like compromise because that means I get a little, you get a little. But we don't like to talk about sacrifice because if I sacrifice that, then I don't get anything. But that's where the selflessness comes in. Like, this person matters that much to me that I'm willing to give that up.
well, Ricky, it's funny because when we were talking about supportive wife and supportive of people's dreams, I think it's next week. The Baja 1000 is going to happen, and Garrett, we did a podcast with, is down there right now helping people out, and his wife supported him, and you
Mm-hmm.
see
Yeah.
it in his posts, and you see how they supportive, and Kyle Kraft's down there, and his wife supported him, and I mean, he was doing this before, but she still supports him, and because he just got married, and he goes down there, and I'm just using that as the Baja 1000 because I've been watching their posts that are happening, and we get to see that through the episodes we do of the people that are supportive around everybody. And yes, there's self-sacrifice, and there is sacrifice. Like, maybe I wanted to go do this. Has been one of those years Ashley was talking about hunting and stuff, and I've in my earlier days I was sacrificing probably my marriage and for my own selfish reasons. And now it's like, you know what? Let's go to that concert and lead. Who actually, then I got to talk to Julia. But let's go to that concert on a Saturday night. Um, I can go hunting next week. And there was a time where I wouldn't have done anything. Like, there, every second of every moment that I had was in the woods. It was gone. It was trying to be successful in what my perception of success was killing an animal, a big animal, and getting some sort of, it was before Facebook, so but getting some sort of notoriety. And now I really don't care. I care about my hunting trip is more about the adventure and stopping and seeing the sunrises or seeing the animals and enjoying the feeling of being out there. Not that I don't want to get something, but life is changing and because
You don't get the time back.
and we're going to Alaska for Christmas. I mean, that is something that I would have never done because I wasn't going to sacrifice my week of vacation to go to Alaska for Christmas when I could be hunting. Now
Yeah.
I'm going to Alaska, and it's also because I'll be closer to the North Pole, and I hope Santa Claus brings me something good. But anyways, yeah, but that was where I'm going with this is that I'm a changing person, and when you start realizing the important things that really life is given to you, all moderation in some aspects is more successful than obsession.
I think my business partner says it very profoundly. She said it about her parents' marriage, but in healthy, good relationships, you don't have long, successful ones if you're keeping score. As
Yep.
long as you don't keep score, you're going to be all right.
So you guys are probably, let me see, it's 9, 10, 17 there.
They're like,
They're like,
wrap it up.
shh, let's wrap it up. So here's the deal. Instead of what's the good life, I'm going to ask everybody here, and if nobody says anything that I'm thinking, then I'll say it too. Say what I think is successful. But can you give one piece of advice about how your relationship can help others? Maybe anybody can start. I guess everybody's going to get divorced here in the next year.
All doomed.
Because I'll start then. I think I'm going to give two because I think they're the same, but just different wording. I say don't be jealous of what you think other people have, because how do you know what they really have? Don't compare what they have to your relationship. And in that same situation, jealousy and selfishness go along together, and they will tear your relationships, not only marriage, but also your circle of friends relationships. I don't care if you have a brand new Toyota now because mine broke down and rolled with that AMC Pacer that I talked about earlier. I'm just kidding here, but I'm not jealous of other people's successes. Be happy for people that are succeeding and maybe take a bit of what they have and ask them. Don't assume, because when we assume, you know what that does too. And live the best life that you can without that jealousy, without that selfishness. Appreciate and support and love and give the best of you to that person in any relationship that is important to you.
Those are really good. I would say one thing that comes to mind, there's so many, but just to tack on to something a little bit I don't think that I really mentioned was kind of losing my train of thought because I'm thinking about the Toyota. I think it's important, and I had this happen to me. There was one time I was really mad at Jesse, and I am not a keeper of very many things. I'm the tosser in the relationship. He's the saver, where he saves everything. And I remember I was going through a box and I found a card. I wrote him, I think, for Valentine's Day, like when we were dating. And why I kept it, beyond me, because that kind of thing I would have thrown away. But I found it and I read it. And inside, I had written like top 20 things that I love about you or something. And I was reading the list. I was like, oh my God, this is the stuff that annoys me. And it was something, just having that moment, reading that card, I then remembered, no, that's what made me like him and fall in love with him. And we have to remember those little things. So while they could get annoying after, over a decade of being together, it's important to remember why you fell in love, why you liked him, why your best friend is your best friend in the first place. Even if you have fallouts or big fights, or even with your business partners, you have to remember from the beginning, when it's like fresh and it's new and it's exciting, like, why did I want to do anything with this person or accept them at this level in my life? So I think that's one thing that we often forget about. And I wish I was better at journaling. I've gone through stages in my life where I do, and my friends who do journal, they're more aware of stuff like this. I just happened to stumble on that card, and that made me more aware from that day on. And that was probably, oh man, that had to have been almost 10 years ago, or 8 to 10 years ago when I found that card. But ever since then, I've been hyper aware now to be like, does that annoy me? Or is that one of his attributes that actually I like, in the beginning? So that's one thing I would offer. It's a little bit unique, I suppose.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm going to kind of play off of that just a little bit. Susan and I got one of those adventure box subscriptions for
Oh,
a little
yes.
period of time, which was really fun. But now that the kids came along, and it's really hard for us to find time. Like, they started piling up, so we had to, stop. And we still actually probably have a couple of them that we still have to do. But there was one in particular that was really cool, and so it was like we basically had to make a journal. There was 2 journals in there, and then we had to. There was like little stamping tools in there that you could stamp like a phrase into the leather cover, and so you had to pick what the title was going to be for their journal, and then there was a series of questions that we would ask, and I think it was for like a week. There was a different question every day of the week. And so we went through and we wrote all that stuff down. And then the kind of part of that purpose of that journal is to, every once in a while, when you feel appreciative or you want to write something in your significant other's journal, you go to their journal and you just like kind of sneakily write something in there and then just put it back. And then every once in a while, I'll go look at mine, and there'll be something in there from like, a few weeks ago or something like that. And it's really easy to forget about those. So sometimes time goes past and we forget. But what we dedicated ourselves to doing is, like, on our anniversary, we pull those out, and we'll always have like a few questions, like, that maybe we want to ask each other, maybe some things that we don't know. But then we go back through the book and kind of reminisce about some of the questions we asked. And, a lot of it is like, what did you love about me in the beginning? Or, just things like that. So you can kind of go back, kind of like to what you were saying, Ashley, about the card. You read back on those things, and it reminds you of the things that what got you started. And then you go, oh man, yeah, that's right, I forgot about that. It kind of just rekindles things a little bit too. So that's something that's been really fun in our marriage.
Well, as I've been thinking and listening, the one thing that continues to go over in my mind is for us to, like, the best advice is to say that love is a choice, and somehow We have to learn how to make that our default setting. So when I'm frustrated, I'm going to choose to love. When I'm angry, I'm going to choose to love. When I'm confused, I'm going to choose to love. That is not natural, and it's something that we have to work on in order for it to become that default setting that we fall back into. And I'm not saying we don't have a point, or we're giving up our position of being right in some disagreements, but through all of it, can we do it in love? Loving that person, loving their heart, even when they don't love ours or aren't paying attention to our heart, so that we're not wounding out of a malicious intent, but we love them even in those moments. And that's not easy, but it is something that we can choose to do, and it will enhance and it will strengthen all of our relationships. That's not just marriage. I think that's every relationship that God brings into our life. If we can disagree and still love, that changes the world.
Yes, it does.
Love that.
Well said.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, well, I just want to say this is real people giving their opinions on relationships and their life trials that they've gone through and what they've been exposed to and what they hope that has made them better. So I want to thank all you guys and girls for being on here tonight, and hopefully the next time you get to see the fantastic Ricktastics, we'll have another great conversation here. So I just want to say, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Die Rusty podcast with your hosts, Rick Hansen and Ricky Bruley. The Don't Die Rusty podcast is written and produced by Rick Hansen and Ricky Bruley. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Don't Die Rusty. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for the Ricks? Send us an email at don'tdierusty@gmail.com. It too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Don't Die Rusty podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.